sticky notes and you're passing notes back and forth, things can get lost in the shuffle. Even an email, things can get lost in the shuffle. I'll admit, I get a lot of emails throughout the day, and if I'm not on top of it, something will slip through the cracks. And that's the benefit of, we actually utilize our own software so that everything feeds back into specific practice management or cases that I'm working. We call them projects. And that allows me to go back through and see, oh, I've missed this one, I've been notified. And that allows the work to continue moving forward. So all of your documents, your notes, your client communication, anything that is pertaining to that case is going to funnel into your practice management software, which allows you to trust, okay, we've gathered all the information, we know where it's at, it is there at our fingertips, and you can access it anywhere, especially if it's cloud-based. Server-based, different question, different topic, but cloud-based practice management is going to allow you to access that, whether it's at your house, the office, at court, wherever it is. And those are the I think the key perks of being able to utilize practice management through your firm in every aspect of it. It becomes the heart of that firm, meaning it is pumping everything throughout and keeping everything moving and successful at that firm.
So, I mean, one of the things that we also talk about is like just the role of different responsibilities within a firm. Oftentimes these cases are very complex and sometimes they last for a very long time. You know, how do you keep track of the moving parts in this sort of very simplified view that we see on our screen? It's easy to forget how many moving parts there are and how much follow-up is needed. Even with clients you've already won, you know, oftentimes in personal injury, there's a lot of follow-up and check-ins required to ensure that things are continuing as you need them to in order to, you know, do the best job for your clients.
Yeah, no, and I wish it was as simple as what we're seeing here. Sign clients, work cases, get paid. But that part where it's work cases is like you said, very complicated and complex. So one of the other perks is being able to automate your workflows through practice management. Whether it's you're triggering it through, you know, task flow buttons and keeping your employees on top of, I need to follow up with this client, I need to fulfill this task or this duty to ensure that this case moves over here. It tracks where the phases are at along with the case as well. So you know exactly where you're at throughout the life cycle of that case, and able to keep tabs on, okay, this is where we're at. We have this document that we need to get. We need to get medical records. We need to get, you know, discovery notes, anything that we could possibly gather and put it into the case management software. And through tasks and automated workflows and deadline chains and reminders, that allows you to understand where you're at, keep that case moving forward. And instead of just relying on the word of an individual, which I trust everybody that I meet, but sometimes we're human. And that's where software comes into play so that nothing is falling between the cracks and everything's getting into the system and allowing that case to move forward. So ultimately, you do get paid, and then you can still follow up and have those relationships with your clients. Because again, they're a great source of referrals and revenue and opportunities. If you treat them right, they're going to come back, they're going to refer people. It's going to be a great opportunity and experience for everybody.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the things also that practice management, case management brings to the table is also just continuity of your business system. So what I mean is, you know, if you're ever looking to merge or be purchased or buy another firm, you know, how do you actually merge your workflows, your systems, your people? If you lose any human resources or you want to bring on new human resources, oftentimes there's a huge burden of getting up to speed, all those trainings, everyone has to do everything from scratch every single time. So using, I mean, and this has corollaries obviously in many other industries, but in legal specifically, there are so many protocols that need to be followed. And there are so many processes and systems that are set up that are specific to the firm. And in many ways, that's your competitive advantage. That's your secret sauce. The way that you compose your, you know, team and the responsibilities that they have is one of the reasons why, you know, your firm is so effective. Your firm is efficiently using resources. It's profitable because it's outsourcing things to the paralegals that the paralegals can do, the attorneys that attorneys can do, receptionists that the receptionists can do, et cetera. So it's a way that you can ensure consistency. with those good margins. And then if you were in a position where you're selling your firm, there's a merger, there's a new office that's opening, how do you replicate, if you don't have practice management software, how do you replicate the office that's in Salt Lake City, right? Versus the office that's in Provo, that's the office that's in Reno, So that's a big part of the practice management software, which is like, how reliant are you on your team right now and on all the knowledge being stuck in the heads of just a few people, that if that person doesn't show up to work tomorrow, or if something happens that takes them out of your firm, how well can your firm run based on the systems that are institutionalized rather than the people who are there?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, you think about it, and I think we're all experiencing it now. They call it the Great Resignation right now, that I think everyone might be going through. And legal's not immune to it. There's turnover there as well. And to your point, Maddy, if somebody that has all of that knowledge base and all of that information in their heads, or maybe it's on notes or something at their desk, that person leaves, how reliant are you? Is that somewhere else where you can just take somebody and kind of plug them in? There may be a learning curve, absolutely. But through getting software and using practice management, you're going to shorten that cycle significantly. And that's, to your point, one of the biggest benefits outside of kind of the automation and the workflows and that information of really what practice management is going to do. You could probably survive without having to replace that person immediately. Just if you have all of those workflows, that information and that data within your practice management software and tool, because it might be a while. I mean, I hear it all the time right now in technology. It's hard to find good people, retain them. And again, legal's not immune to that either. So having that within your system to kind of take into account that might happen is really going to save you in the long run, and still give your clients the great experience they're expecting and looking for, which ultimately will lead to more opportunities and cases for you that will allow you to get paid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the client experience is more and more reliant on the technology that underpins the firm, rather than, like roulette, which person at the firm do you connect well with. And, there should be a personal connection still, but with the technology, it sort of like levels the baseline so much higher for like, what is that, foundational experience? It's not so much burden on the humans in the firm who should be using their time and energy towards actually working the cases. And when you think about it, like, there are so many reports that show that attorneys are spending, about 2 hours every single day on firm administration and management. So when you have that much of a human input, you're using a ton of resources that are not billable time, right? That's not billable work of those 2 hours a day. How much more work could you generate with your firm? How many more cases could you accept, especially in PI, where things have all different life cycles and longevity, where you want to stack maybe a lot of cases up because you don't know when they're going to close and you need that income coming in. So you want to be able to work more and work smarter. This allows you to actually have a larger book of business that you can manage if you're able to do it more efficiently, and you're spending less time on that management, on the monitoring of work that's being done. You have the faith that the system is set up properly, even though, let's be honest, it does take a little bit of time to set things up. And one of the things that I would like to talk to you about, Brock, is, let me move to the next slide. So we're going to talk about efficiency and effectiveness. One of the things that I have always found is really unique with Filevine is the level of customization that you offer. And I would like to really understand from you why it has to be that customized in your view, because it's really a unique approach and it must be important because it's extra work, right? At the beginning.
It is. And I think I look at it as it's both beneficial, but it's also an obstacle for certain firms. That customization, the reason it's there is it comes back to the founding members of Filevine who were practicing law in Las Vegas and ultimately just weren't finding a solution that fit their needs within their firm. And it was going to be just an internal system, a practice management software for them. And it ultimately turned into what it is today. And the reason is for that, as far as the customization, is every firm is unique. I mean, you could say they can come out. There's a lot of overlap as far as what they do, but ultimately their workflows, their style, the way they get things done is going to be unique and different enough to where an out-of-the-box solution may not be the case. And also that allows for, as you can see over here, as your firm grows, you're going to scale, which means you're going to have to adapt and change what you've been doing. If you went from, 2 or 3 employees to suddenly 20 or 30, your workflow that was working for over here is not going to be the same over here. And so that's what allows everybody to continue to grow with Filevine is that customization. You can update it, you can change your workflows. And ultimately, if you're stuck in just, you can only do this, you're going to have to look elsewhere. And we all know that replacing software, especially a core operating system within your firm, is a nightmare. So why not get something in up front that allows you to customize it and change as you grow and implement new opportunities, practice areas, whatever it may be. Filevine is there for that customization. And that's why.
I love that. That makes a ton of sense. I've presented with a lot of attorneys, CLEs over the years. And one of the things that we talk about when we look at the software, how do you qualify new software purchases and implementations? How do you pick software, right? And there are a few things, is it meeting your budget? Is it meeting your immediate needs? And then does it meet the needs that are projected out based on where you'd like your firm to go and grow, right? Because no one likes switching software. Is it customizable and does it fit within whatever set of solutions you may or immediately want to involve in your practice management, right? So, I mean, that's why we're here today. We're talking about Smith.ai and Filevine working together.
Right.
That flexibility, that interaction is critical because, Filevine, just like Smith.ai, is not going to do every single thing for you, right? So if it's not going to file your taxes, if it's not going to run your, bills or the documents to the courthouse or whatever, what are the components that you need to fit in that need to work well with the system? And then how much can you actually handle comprehensively within Filevine, right? Within Smith.ai. Like, I think that both you and I take the approach that it should be pretty darn comprehensive for you to make that investment, not just of, a small sum of money, but of the time, which is actually much costlier if you keep spending it over and over again on the different solutions that just don't seem to fit or work for you. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is that you've identified it does need this bespoke customization because very few firms understand what an implementation should go like, how things should be mapped and set up without a ton of training and specialization in that. Very few firms have a technologist on staff full-time to be monitoring that. So doesn't it make sense of the things that we could outsource, of the things that we could contract to bring in that technology? Absolutely. I mean, it's a project basis, right? And there's some ongoing maintenance, but that initial launch needs to be handled by experts and, with solutions that you want to carry with your firm and its growth long-term.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And anyone looking to change their software, I'll say, it's not painless. Let's put that out there. I refer to it as, again, earlier in the conversation, that your project management software becomes the heart of your organization. And just like if you go in and get heart surgery, yes, you'll be put out, you're numbed, all of that, but the recovery process is still painful. And that's why they have pain meds. But as far as Filevine, in essence, it's a surgical approach. We want to look at, okay, what are you doing at your firm as far as workflows? Not only can we take those, but how do we improve upon that as well and get that into the system and customize it to where it's streamlining those workflows, you're improving those workflows. It's not just you're taking this and cookie cutting it into something else. It's a change management. It's a change in that paradigm shift. And that part can be painful, but once you're through and you're in and you see that your firm grows. I mean, I've got plenty of examples. I don't know if you want me to share where firms have taken Filevine and increased the revenue by 2 million that year, or have started their own firm and ultimately have turned that into a great business where they had quit a firm, decided to take a chance on their own, used Filevine, got their systems automated, and now they're able to just enjoy more time with their family, but still be able to take those clients on and more cases than if they didn't have a practice management tool.
I mean, I think what you're getting at is that it's a competitive advantage, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it is going to be a short-term pain for a long-term gain, right? You
Absolutely.
increase the sustainability, the strength of your firm long-term, and it's a foundation that's strong to build on, right?
Exactly.
So if you want to post in the chat, a link to any of those resources, or to just book a time with the team to talk more about those use cases and those testimonials and examples, I think that would be totally fair. And people are definitely already asking for those, so thank you. So great, I like to be a mind reader. So yeah, any other questions about Filevine, please in the chat keep asking. We would love to be here for you live to answer your questions. And in the meantime, we're going to talk a little bit about outsourcing and automation when it comes to sort of the pre-client life cycle, right? So what happens before the client actually hires your firm? There's this entire sales funnel or marketing funnel, however you want to think about it, that is bringing these clients in, and maybe it's organic search traffic, maybe they are referrals, maybe they come in through writings or classes that you teach, webinars that you're hosting, just to educate the consumer base. And when they come in, you don't necessarily know, unless they're a really qualified referral or they've answered a bunch of questions already. Most website contact forms is just basically name, email, phone number, and a big blank box for tell us your life story or tell us nothing at all. So it's really hard to predict like those online leads who are coming through, who are actually well qualified, and a conversation is needed first to qualify them, to ask the right questions, and to make sure that they're not booking time on your calendar or nagging you for free legal advice. That there's actually a funnel here, that it's not a loss funnel where we're losing anything. It's just a refinement to say, look, we want to make sure that whoever is getting through here is worthy of your time. They're a right fit for the practice area. They have the ability to pay, or they understand the time that it's going to take, or whatever the case may be. Are they in the right service area? Not just your practice area. Do they understand what you do and don't do as a firm? And does that match their present need before they even get to that point where they're having a consultation, free or paid, obviously, free for all the personal injury attorneys who are with us today. And then, are they a retained client? Do they actually commit to the representation of the firm? One of the things is that we see so much noise up front, and that's one of the main bottlenecks for firms. When you've got this solution set up for case and practice management, you want to make sure that, you can buy the fanciest oven in the world, but if you're not a very good baker and you mix up your sugar and your salt, well, who cares what comes out of the oven, right? So you need to make sure that if you're looking for sugar, your leads are showing sugar, right? And not salt. So one of the things that happens is there's a lot of noise these days. There's a lot of people who are contacting firms and they don't know what they need. They don't know if now is the right time. They don't know how much it's going to cost. But the most qualified leads and the least qualified leads all know that they are looking for an instantaneous response. So it becomes a problem when you respond to everyone and only some of them are qualified. So that's really where like the virtual receptionist solution comes in, and we sit on the front line. We're able to really conquer that initial response and say, you are a good fit, you're not a good fit, based on what the firm has told us are their parameters, their criteria for a really well qualified lead. And we'll talk about some of the ways that we can do that. There is a lot of time wasted on leads who are never contacted. And a lot of the reason why money and time is wasted is because after a certain point, if you're doing all this work yourself and only 50% of the leads, let's say, are going to move forward with a consult, they're well qualified, you might find like, well, I'm wasting too much time. Who cares if I don't pick up the phone? Because there's a 50-50 chance that that person's not going to be qualified. But there's a 50-50 chance that person is going to be qualified. And there is a like 70% chance, almost 67% chance that you will win the business of that qualified lead if you just pick up the phone first. If someone at your firm, some representation of your firm, meaning a virtual receptionist service, answers that phone call first. And then that qualified lead goes and talks to the attorney, the intake specialist, whoever it is, to get that business. Now, why else don't we answer? Well, spam calls are absolutely atrocious. We all experience it every single day. We don't want to see our phones ring, and we just don't get excited that, oh, when your phone rings, how often do you think, oh my gosh, that's got to be a new client, versus 9 out of 10 times, like, it's a spam call, right? So especially your personal cell phone. I hope no one's getting work calls to their personal cell phones cold. It should not be on your website. But the problem is we have so much noise that we start to discount the value of a phone call. And what we're doing is we've got a whole handful of, various rocks. And if some of them are coal and there's a couple diamonds in there, how would we possibly just chuck it over our shoulders and say, nah, it's probably all a loss, right? That doesn't make sense to me. And I'm sure it doesn't make sense to you. You'd probably want to sort through it so you don't throw out any diamonds. So that's the way that, firms are getting stuck in the funnel, because they're throwing out the entire pile without being able to sort through it. Why? Because it's a lot of work. And also, if you don't do the work up front, it's an absolute bear to try and get in touch with those leads, who are then very, very challenging to get, back in touch with. You play phone tag, you send emails, you send texts, you make calls, and it takes on average 6 calls before you can actually get in touch with the intended recipient and have a high confidence that you've exhausted your attempts at those 6. Who has time to do that? So yes, you can get in touch with them, but are you actually going to take the time to have 6 different outreach points, whether that's an email and a text and a call? At least a phone call, you don't have to think about what you're going to say, but an email and a text, you have to write these things. They're scripted. Your team has to follow the same protocol. It ends up being a lot of work. And this is why people don't do it. It's not like you're to blame and we're pointing fingers. It's totally understandable why people don't do this work, right? But those gems are there, and other firms are sorting through them. So if you don't, who will? Who in your local area, your competition, is doing that work? When they contacted you first, when you paid for the ad, when you have this referral network that you've been building up, it's a shame. It's like, it feels like a crime to say, and I make that joke to a legal audience, but like, it's very upsetting to have done all that work up front, all that great marketing work, all those good referral relationships, and then have someone contact your firm and that sorting isn't done, and you end up, not even realizing what you had, that now your competitors have, right? And what you can also, make note of here is the importance of screening prior to the consult, even if you are. So let's say you are in touch actually with those leads, you're pulling out those diamonds in that, big rough patch, and you realize, okay, well, a lot of people are willing then, when I get in touch with them, to have that consultation, but are they actually serious? Are they sincere? Are they ready to go? Are they committed? Maybe they don't even have to put money up front, but they have to be ready to commit to the firm. And what we see is that the majority of leads who consulted with a business didn't hire that business. Well, that is something that we want to prevent, because if we're protecting your time, if we're talking about firm efficiency at scale, that's something that we have to nail as well. So it's really important that we don't just ask demographic information, firmographic information if you work with businesses, but make sure that you ask, how ready are you to move forward? How have you, identified the budget that you need for this? Are you aware that it's going to take 6 months, a year, 2 years, however long on average the type of case that you're talking about lasts? These are the expectations that you want to set, and not be shy about it, because the better conversation you have up front, the better conversation you have for the life cycle of that client, right? So we understand what the bottleneck looks like here. We have a ton of inbound leads. Some of them are really high quality, but when we have so few resources in the firm dedicated to that responsiveness, it becomes bottlenecked, right? And instead of trying to say, look, let's get a little process in place and everyone handles, a few calls every so often, and we get through, we clear that bottleneck. What we're doing instead is we're pouring Drano into it, and we're saying, you know what, just clear it all out. Like I can't get through it. I'm not going to get through it. The right leads will come through, no problem. And Drano just wipes all of it out, right? So as a result, we miss a lot of opportunities. We think that our marketing costs are way higher than they actually are. And what we see is that if we just respond quickly, we can actually improve the return on our marketing investment. And that happens in as little as 1 minute. So there's an almost 400% improvement on a lead conversion rate, which means, like, do they actually become a client that ends up producing revenue for your firm? In 1 minute, there's a 400% improvement if you just get in touch with them by phone, whether that is a form fill and an immediate callback, or it's a phone call that is answered right as it rings. No voicemail, right? If you wait 2 minutes, look, it goes down to 160%. No one's complaining about that. Fine, 3 minutes, 98%. All right, still pretty good. But if you wait an hour, 5 hours a day, you are potentially still better than some of the firms out there, but you have significantly lost a major advantage that you had access to if you had just responded sooner. So my point here is, this is extremely important as anything else at the firm, to make sure that you are responding really quickly, that you're putting solutions in place to respond quickly, because it determines how your firm is going to be successful from now in the immediate future into the far future. And what we see is that it's not just an impact on, like, your market share, on how many new leads you're able to convert, but also the share of the wallet for those who can work with clients on a repeat basis, on an expanded basis. I'm thinking about business law and other family or estate matters where there's multiple, matters within maybe the same family or individual or business. 67% isn't just the percent of clients who say, your initial responsiveness is most important to me. I'm going to hire the firm that's going to respond immediately. But also it's 67% of customers or clients who receive excellent service spend up to 14% more. So you have a better relationship with your clients. They are spending more with you. They're leaning in and saying, how much more business can we do together? Can you be my attorney on this real estate deal? Can you be my attorney on the next property investment that I'm going to make? How much more can we work together? And this doesn't even account for the fact that they're making referrals that are also bringing a new business to you, right? So the impact is actually far greater than even just this slide conveys. But what we want to do when we think about, well, how much is this going to cost? It's actually how much is it going to save? Because you think about solutions like, Filevine, like Smith.ai, like other things that you might be using. Brock and I were just talking about Case Status, which is really cool software that automatically gives your clients updates on their case so that they don't call you nagging for updates and taking up your time. All of these things that cost money, because there's a entire company making sure that they continue to work for you. They save you on the lost business, on the bad client experience, on the extra chores and those calls that come in nagging, asking for updates, on the leads who never have another conversation because no one connected with them initially, on the clients who have given up trying to get in touch with the firm and seek other counsel. How do you make sure that that great client experience and that responsiveness is actually something that adds growth to your firm? Investing a little bit upfront goes a long way, and that doesn't even account for the loss that happens in the opportunity of revenue that you didn't realize, right? So without spending any more on marketing, let's just say that, very simple numbers, you've got 1,000 visitors to your website. It costs you $5,000 to bring that traffic. You've got 80 leads who move into 40 qualified opportunities, qualified potential new clients. 20 of those have, substantial consultations, and 10 become retained clients. Just for really easy math, I'm, sure many of your client value is more than 2,000, but let's say it's 2,000, you have 20,000, right? Now you've made $15,000 net as, from your $5,000 spend initially. Great. All right. That math is pretty good. Now, what if you just had more qualified opportunities, more consultations, and retain the same amount of clients from more consultations? You maybe one more, maybe two more. Even if you move one of those numbers, more qualified opportunities, well, then half of that is a bigger number and half of that is a bigger number. So you don't necessarily have to do more marketing if that's something that you're thinking about. You actually want to tighten up this funnel from the visitor to the lead to the qualified lead to the client, so that if I do spend more on marketing, I'm going to maximize my return from that marketing spend. And I'm going to see even more than 20 here, because it's going to be multiplied by 15 retained clients because I got more opportunities out of those total visitors, right? So it's very simplified, but it absolutely works, and it allows you to say, well, then how many cases can I project if I spend this much more on marketing? If I have my calls, my website chat reliably answered, then I can predict that I'm going to have this growth rate month over month, and I need maybe another paralegal. I need to set something up in Filevine ahead of time for these 15 new clients so that their account is ready as soon as that client is onboarded. So it allows you to have operational efficiency to predict for those downstream teams what work they need to do and how much staff you actually need to support what marketing is bringing in, what sales is bringing in. So this is available to you. I will share it after the session today if you want to use that table yourself. Being mindful of time, I'm going to move pretty quickly through some of the next slides so that we can talk about the integration. But I just want to encourage you to think about, where the communications coming into your firm, and are you looking as comprehensively at that as you look at your case management, practice management solutions, right? So are you thinking about the channels where people are reaching you and removing bias from those channels? Are you responding as quickly on Facebook as you are, to a phone call? Well, that's also really important. One of the things that we see is the importance of 24/7 responsiveness, because about 25% of leads are coming in after hours, and that's not going anywhere. People are working more flexible hours. They're working from home. They have childcare responsibilities. They have aging parents who they're also responsible for. It's absolutely not an anomaly that people who are maybe parents get the kids to bed, have said goodnight to their parents themselves, and then finally have the opportunity to contact the law firm at 9, 10 o'clock at night, right? Might not be 2 a.m. Obviously, for the personal injury attorneys, it may be, and for other situations, but it is, even if you're outside of the emergency law scenarios, it's becoming normal to see as much as 25% of leads contacting you after hours, and they are just as qualified, typically, maybe even more qualified, given that they have a sense of urgency that means they're reaching you then and not the next morning, to pay careful attention to them, right? So you want to make sure also that if someone is sending you a message on Facebook, you respond on Facebook. If someone's sending you a message via text message, that you also text back, because one of the considerations here is, other communication channels may be compromised. A recent scenario that we saw completely anonymously, of course, is that there is, a number of cases that will come in by an initial phone call. And maybe that's the house phone number for someone who's dealing with domestic abuse, or, whatever situation is unsafe at the home. But for that moment, they made a call from the house phone. If you're going to call them back on that phone, then you might put them, at risk, and they're going to say, it's really important that you only text me on my cell phone. So, that spouse doesn't hear the phone ring, they don't intercept that call, et cetera. So we have to think about these communication channels as a point of safety, as a point of discretion. There are people who are at work that can't talk freely about a legal matter while they're at their desk next to other colleagues. This silent sort of chat, text, Facebook solutions are really important to allow your clients that discretion, that quiet, silent mode of communication. So how do we look at this as a funnel? Well, we think about the lead sources coming in, the contact methods, the response methods. How do we actually engage with them and on what platform? Who is actually responsible? Hopefully not the firm owner, operator, principal attorney, but someone else who's working on your behalf so that you can do other more important things. And the qualification step is most important. And we see that's where the breakdown happens above and below the line, where the qualified leads get worked. There's intake, there's scheduled appointments, there's retention, there's documents that are signed, and then you have a new client. And then there's the qualification process where we see they're not a good fit. And maybe that's a future client. Maybe you're monetizing that, depends on your bar rules. Maybe it's just goodwill, where we say, you know what, let me recommend a firm that might be a better fit for you. Instead of just, kicking them back to their Google search, how can we provide a really great experience there? And many Smith.ai clients will say to us, can you please recommend this set of firms for X, Y, and Z practice area that we recommend, because we want to make sure that everyone who contacts our firm has a great experience. So they might not be going into your practice management solution as a new record or project, but they certainly are getting an experience that would have them maybe recommend your firm to someone who's a better fit. So when we think about, intake and the questions that we ask, obviously we know that Lead Docket is a fantastic solution for this. And you have intake forms that Smith.ai can complete for you. You want to make sure that you're asking for the minimum viable information to make a good decision, right? So for Smith.ai, we want to ask a business name because we work with businesses. We don't work with individuals typically. We want to know the size so we can understand, all right, well, how complicated or complex would this account be? What's the website? Can we learn about your business without making you write, a ton of information initially for us? Now, for a law firm, you don't have to just say name, email, phone number in a big blank box, but instead you can ask, do you have a court date scheduled? What was the date of the incident? Was there anyone else affected? Are there any other names we should check for a conflict check? What other parties are involved, et cetera? What is the county or the zip code or anything else? Like, have you ever been, under legal representation for this matter in the past? There are a few things that you can get as early indicators that either can be asked on your website or asked for a receptionist service that do not require the attorney's effort upfront to take that time and ask those questions yourself. There is a resource here for you to create your own intake form, to identify those as an exercise, and that will be shared with you. And, you may find that it's really important to refine it over time. Let's say that you're really proud of a new intake form that you made, and then you see this last section for, do you have a court date scheduled? It's a write-in field, but it could be a yes or no question. It could be a date selector instead of just an open box. So how do you help your firm keep really good records and not have so many variables of what could someone fill into that box? Limit it based on what that field actually allows, and you'll find that that ends up creating a better foundation when you do create, that project, that work in your practice management solution. Obviously, calendaring is absolutely critical to carry the momentum of that new lead who contacts your firm. For those who are qualified, you want to schedule them right away. You typically don't want to make them wait for a callback. Someone at our firm will get in touch with you if this is a good fit. It's better to schedule that callback and have to say, you know what, we've determined this is not a good fit. We'd like to refer you to this other firm, and cancel that meeting if you have to, rather than trying to chase them and get that meeting on the calendar, which is a lot harder to do and a lot less favorable of an experience for you or for that client who's just wondering, when am I going to hear back from that firm? And that allows them to have the time and sort of mental bandwidth to go and reach out to other firms, because they don't have that sense of closure that a booked appointment even later that day or the next day brings. So I strongly encourage that. You can also add your calendar link to your email signature if you're comfortable with some parameters around it, such as, new consultations are free, or this calendar is only for existing clients, if that's how you want to go about it. There are plenty of guardrails that you can set on these solutions, including having your intake form actually as part of your scheduling dance, so to say, like your scheduling process. If you can consolidate that, either through a receptionist service handling all of it, and the user never, the new potential client never actually experiences the different components, or having it really seamless on your website, you can say, look, step 1 is completing this lead docket form, and step 2 is scheduling an appointment that then shows up in Filevine. Great. Now you've got the transparency to the team. You've got the ease of use for your potential clients. I already mentioned the importance of following up 6 times. This is just a chart actually from Lead Docket when we gave a presentation years ago, and this still stands true today about not giving up too soon. The dilemma is obviously that we don't have time in the day to continue the amount of attempts that are needed, understanding that your competition is leaving a lot of room here for you to outperform them. If 39% of the new lead calls are reaching voicemail, that means the entire, sort of space, the legal industry in your area is hitting that same percentage on average. That means that we are cutting off so much potential to reach those new leads who just need a little bit more follow-up, who just need that extra touch point. And they're waiting to be contacted, and they're eager when you contact them, right? If you're worried about feeling like a salesperson, first of all, that's why Smith.ai is here to, offload the task to, but also keep in mind that their sense of urgency and their sense of relief when they actually have secured an attorney for whatever is happening that they reached out for, that so supersedes any negative feeling of, why is this, a person who I don't know, continuing to call me. Now, chat is also extremely beneficial for firms. We see about 1 chat for every 4 calls, and those are net new chats that are happening often because people are not as likely to call when they could chat and they prefer it, allowing them to have this conversation many more points during the day instead of a few moments when they actually can step out and have a call where they don't know how long it's going to take. If I work with an attorney, I've never worked with an attorney before, they're thinking, is this a 10-minute call? Can I handle it on my work break? Or is this a 30-minute call and I'm going to get in trouble at work? Chat allows you to have these conversations at more times during the day, and it a wider range of times during the day. Again, sitting on the couch next to someone who you wouldn't want to overhear your conversation, you can chat just the same and they're not part of that conversation. So there's a huge benefit there. So let's talk about ways that we can connect our 2 solutions together so that we are helping you streamline, automate, and outsource. And this slide is all about how you can track your time, tag and identify the time so that you can streamline your work using the Eisenhower decision matrix to make the right decisions about importance versus urgency in your firm. I will leave that for you to review so that we have time to discuss how this integration actually works and how you can get started by connecting with our 2 companies. So if you don't already have your API base URL, your key and key secret, and your project ID, those are all things that you will need so that Smith.ai can add calls to the activity tab of a specific Filevine project. Now, you might find that it benefits your firm in the way that you operate within Filevine to have a specific Smith.ai project. So you can create a new one labeled Smith.ai and then provide that project ID if you want all the Smith.ai calls to show up just in that project, and then you can move them. But you'll need to go into Filevine portal to get your org details and to pull your key secret, and base URL. The project ID will be added into Smith.ai when you log in. There's an integrations tab in your dashboard, and you'll be able to add that. If you have any questions, obviously our support teams are here for you. The beauty of this connection is once you enter the API information in your project ID and you click connect, it happens instantaneously. And after that's set up, you will see every next call in Filevine within that project, and all of the call details that you expect from Smith.ai. So you'll see, you know, the date and timestamp, the type, whether that's incoming or outgoing, the disposition, the status, are they a new lead or an existing client? What's the priority? How long did it last? And of course, who are they? You'll also see that it's coming from Smith.ai, so you know why that call is in there. And you'll see the details from the receptionist who wrote the call summary that we can see here on the screen. Brock, is there anything that you wanted to add about the integration itself, or maybe answers to questions that you've seen come up?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen any questions pop up, but as far as this goes, I think, you know, kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier, is the benefit is with these virtual outsourced receptionists, it allows them to, in essence, have an extension of their own firm. And like we were talking about, I come from a background of direct sales, so I'm used to outreaching, cold calling, all of that. And it's true, I've experienced firsthand, 6 calls is the magic number. Don't give up. Don't just, you know, throw in the towel, but utilize Smith.ai to have that as your source of outreaching to follow up on those opportunities. And again, as you can see here, it funnels right back in to Filevine and to that activity feed, or the Vine, as we've come to love that term, where you see all the client communications, updates, anything that's happening within that case. And this right here allows you to say, I have gotten the information that I need from Smith.ai right into the project. It's going to be a lifesaver. And ultimately, I think you're going to see the marketing spend that you are putting out there come to fruition, or ROI, by using Smith.ia on this integration with Filevine. It's huge. I think it's great. So that's my thought on it, Maddy.
All right, thanks, Brock. And obviously you can, you know, move this activity, you can, you know, do things with this activity that Brock, maybe you can speak to some of the ways this can be utilized as an activity, you know, moving it to another project, maybe for a new, you know, matter that's created, a new case, moving it to maybe a mail room for further triage or something like that. Did I miss any scenarios?
No, that's perfect. Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay. All right, great. So there is one question that I want to address. Is that on the project ID, does the integration work with multiple project IDs? For example, we have hundreds of projects and Smith.ai takes or makes a call. Can it be sent to the individual case? So that's more of a triage task, as I understand it. Brock, do you want to handle that one? Where all of them are coming into one project, and then you would sort of place them where they need to go because they don't all necessarily match to an existing case, right?
Yeah, going back to your point, where perhaps the best thing to do is create a Smith.ai conversation, kind of like what you have here as a sample, and then have that project ID into that integration. So it all funnels into there. You'll see all the information. The benefit of that is you're, again, able to triage, see which ones are pertinent, and also be able to go through and make sure whoever's tasked to do that is following up and moving those items into the pertinent case. So for example, if Maddy calls in, Smith.ai answers it, they take all this information here, which is beautiful. Your paralegal, case manager, whoever is actually assigned to handling that responsibility of going through that activity section of this case can identify which case that needs to be moved to. And that's something that's beneficial from these activity feeds, is you can just easily move it over to the correct project.
Right. And the follow-up question to that was, you know, what if Smith.ai is given each project ID? As the integration stands currently, we cannot have many different project IDs. We can only have one right now, but that's really important feedback. So thank you for asking that question. And we will take that back as something that we could look at as a future improvement. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I want to do is bring actually Jamie on, which is to your great treat. All right, so Jamie, I'm promoting you as a panelist. Hopefully this is working. And there we go. So I will just, I'll make you a co-host, and then you can jump on video, and I'll stop sharing my screen just for a second so that we can have a chat, Jamie, about tags that you wanted to mention. And thanks so much for chiming in here. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have just been working with a handful of clients recently, as the Filevine integration is new, and it's been super exciting, but really kind of learning with Filevine's capabilities, how we can work within that to make those workflows work well. So one of the things that we discovered is that use of the tags, and I know that those are searchable within Filevine for a host of different ways to report in detail and all of that. And we actually have the capability of within our auto-generated summaries to actually build those hashtags right in. So that was just a really cool feature that we kind of hadn't considered on the front end, but in working with a couple of prospective clients, that we had realized that that could be a really useful feature in making the two systems talk well together. So
Jamie, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what Jamie is saying is that in this call summary itself, those tags would actually be discoverable and searchable within Filevine. So that would promote more usefulness immediately, while you're not able to have multiple project ideas, accept certain different calls. You can search through tags, which is useful and also promotes some consistency there with how those tags would be used. And Jamie, I don't know if you had an example of what tags might be used, like if there was a, I don't know, a type of matter or a location.
Yeah, for the particular client that we were working with, it was a breakdown of, they were a personal injury firm. So it was a breakdown of different matters that they were dealing with. They happened to be part of the Flint water case. So they use hashtag Flint and hashtag lead, and a variety of other ones that he had said that they could narrow it down to kind of 6 or 12 key hashtags that they use to flow information, that would be really helpful. Again, that we could build right into those call summaries to help those workflows work together. The other piece I wanted to just touch base on really quick, I know that singular project is kind of a point of concern because it does pull a ton of information. And I know that when the details get dropped into those individual projects, it can notify the correct person about a follow-up task that needs to happen by that updated project. We kind of can work around that within our call summary notifications, for lack of a better. Those can actually get parsed out to individuals based on case type or a variety of other things. As long as it's a logic-based flow of information, we can delineate those call summaries out so that that notification is still happening. They'll know that there's something within Filevine, that Smith.ai project, that needs to be dealt with. It just wouldn't be a notification direct within Filevine. So
got it, but a notification via email or text or something as well,
exactly.
Which I know that clients actually sometimes, you might prefer one or the other. It's not necessarily, bad if you don't get the notification in Filevine. If you, want to see that text immediately, then that works for you. Great. Jamie, thank you so much. That's also a really good point to bring up about the notifications, and that can be based on, different trigger points or criteria.
Absolutely.
So I know that we are at the end of our time. So there are a few other tips here about using Smith.ai and Filevine for calendaring and intake forms. There's a help doc here that is available to you. You can read that on your own time. And obviously we have resources at both of our companies to support you and make sure that this is really as easy as possible for you to implement. Brock has generously added a 10% discount on Filevine core offerings for Smith.ai clients. And so too has Smith.ai added a discount for our new clients who want to sign up for Smith.ai who are Filevine clients. There are a few details about Smith.ai here in the deck that I will save you from because I want to make sure that we end relatively on time. But getting started is very easy, and we have plenty of client testimonials. So take the Filevine 100 code for $100 off your first month and get in touch with us. I will put the calendaring link in the chat if you would like to schedule some time and learn more about our company as well at Smith.ai, which is our website, not smithai.com, but Smith.ai. And we would love to chat with you more about how we can implement these two solutions for you in a way that feels really seamless and efficient for your firm. If there are any other questions, I'm happy to stay on for another few minutes. Otherwise, please do get in touch with us via the links that I shared in the chat. You can always reach out at support@Smith.ai. And Brock, what's the best way to get in touch with Filevine?
Either email me directly, brock@filevine.com, or to go to our website, filevine.com, and submit a request there. You can also chat with support through that website as well. If you have any questions as far as how to get that integration working, they're happy to kind of walk through getting the API portal and all of that information kind of figured out with you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. And Jamie, thanks again for gracing us with your presence and for all the great tips. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending time with us. And Brock, you as well. Thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was great. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.
All right. Bye.